There is a phrase that has quietly shaped the way women relate to their bodies: hormonal balance. It sounds harmless, even helpful, but underneath it is a story that has kept women disconnected from their own biointelligence. Because the truth is, your body was never designed to be balanced. It was designed to move, to shift, to rise and fall, to contract and expand, to speak in phases, not flat lines. And when we try to force that into balance, we don't create health. We create self-doubt. We start to believe something is wrong with us when we're tired in our luteal phase, when we need silence in our menstrual phase, when we feel expansive, expressive, or sensitive at different times of the month. But what if none of that is imbalance? What if it's intelligence? In this episode, I'm breaking open the myth of hormonal balance through the lens of Cycle Alchemy and offering a new language for women's health that doesn't pathologize your rhythm, but actually listens to it. Because your cycle is not something to be fixed. It's something to understand. And once you stop trying to balance yourself and start leaning into how you belong in your body, your health will resume once more. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I've been doing lots of interviews with some amazing voices and people, and I realized that it's been a little bit since you've heard from just me. So I wanted to make sure that you have a little bit of my voice in the conversation and not just me interviewing other people, although it's been an incredibly rich experience. Like, how many of you love the amazing voices that I've had on the show? So today I want to talk about something that's kind of a hot button issue for me. There is a lot of language out there in social media about hormone balance. And it's talked about a lot. It's looked at in labs. We've been taught that wellness means balance. But balance just implies this insidious narrative that I just cannot stand, which is that you're broken, unstable, wrong, something needs to be fixed, and that's simply not true. Our culture tends to operate very much from a body betrays me. My body needs the doctor who acts as a mechanic to go in and fix something because I am somehow not whole or functioning properly. But that's not the case. Your body, and this is the shift that I've been making in my own work into Cycle Alchemy. I've put it up on my website. I've talked about it a little bit, but this is an opportunity for me to really tell you what Cycle Alchemy is, because Cycle Alchemy looks at the body as a rhythm, that your body is not trying to be balanced. It's trying to be in rhythm. It is trying to be in alignment. It is trying to communicate with you that something doesn't feel right. And so this whole idea about balancing hormones, like whenever you have labs done, they are literally a snapshot of the moment that they did the blood draw. Your body, 90 seconds, 90 minutes later, is a completely different composition than when you had your lab work done. So balancing hormones is a little bit of a myth. You're looking at creating right relationship in the body in order to create the best expression of health. So I want to share with you this idea that balance culture is actually a form of control dressed as wellness. So if you've looked at any of my blogs that have come out about control being an illusion and control creating imbalances in the body that create hurdles for all kinds of health, this is going to all make sense to you. If this is a new concept for you, control is an illusion. Control creates a false pretense. And the more we try to control, the more we exert energy and resources that should be going to other processes in the body, thus feeding the disharmony and dysfunction that we're experiencing that's showing up as negative symptoms. So, balance culture is a form of control, and it is articulated to people as a means to wellness. But the thing is women's bodies, anybody's body, really, any body is not static, right? Men have less of an up and down cadence to their hormones because they are not infradian rhythm beings, meaning their hormones run on a 24-hour day cycle. Women's bodies move on a 28 to 30 day hormone cycle on average. That's what it means to be infradian rhythm. It's something that is different than a 24-hour cycle. Okay. And one of the most common misunderstandings when women go into the doctor's office and they say something doesn't feel right in my body, I have the symptom that's disruptive, is that there seems to be this underlying understanding that women's bodies are more like little men than dynamic the way that they are with their up and down infradian rhythm, and that the female body was never meant to be static. We are infradian rhythm beings. Our bodies move in seasons and cycles in our life, in our lifetime, in alignment with the lunar cycle, in alignment with the seasons outside the window. We are not meant to be static. The menstrual cycle is not a flat line. It is a wave system. Your hormones are meant to work, and your flow, even your flow rate of your cycle, it comes in light medium, or it's supposed to. If not, it's communicating with you. But an ideal healthy cycle comes in light medium the first day, gets heavier day 2 into day 3, starts to come down, and then cruises to the finish line. When you have a flood on day 1, that tells a story. When your period stops bleeding and goes psych on day 3, and then it appears again 12, 24 hours later, and then bleeds for a couple of more days. Sorry for anybody who purchases new underwear and that is the bleeding pattern that you experience, but it is a communication pattern. It is supposed to be a soft bell curve expression. Healthy cycles come in kind of light, they ramp up a little bit, they start to slow down, and then they cruise to the finish line. Our entire cycle, okay, our lunar cycle, from the first day of fresh red blood until the first day of fresh red blood appears again next month, that also is a wave system where it carries different hormonal, emotional, and energetic intelligence in each phase. So a lot of times what is called an imbalance is often a misunderstanding of how your body is supposed to show up in each phase and how you can support your body in each phase. So I created the Alchemist Toolkit specifically to address this need so that women could learn that they have different energetic needs, they have different energetic expression, they need different foods in different phases of their cycle in order to be as symptom-free as possible. So when we say that things are imbalanced, often it is a phrase that is like blanketing the fact that we misunderstand or we are suppressing aspects of ourself, because symptoms are communication, not malfunction. I can't stress this enough. Symptoms are communication. It is the only language that your body knows in order to be able to tell you that it needs something. I had this conversation with my daughter the other day. She was complaining about a symptom that was not feeling really good to her. And so I started asking her questions about when the symptoms started. When does it show up? Does it get worse in certain conditions? And what we determined is that her body was telling her that a particular social situation was too stressful, and she would end up with a rash over her throat. So her body was saying, I'm having a hard time expressing myself here. And it needed a way to offload the extra heat and energy that was happening as a result of suppressing her voice. Our cycles do the same thing. When we have delayed starts to our cycle, meaning elongated cycles, we are controlling ourselves in some way. We are suppressing ourselves in some way because our chi isn't flowing well. Our blood and fluids are not flowing well. So symptoms are not the problem. They are the language that your body is trying to desperately communicate with you in. And oftentimes we see symptoms as whispers first. It might be that there's some irregularity in your cycle. It might be a headache pattern. It might be what you chalk up to sciatica pain, but it's actually a way that your body is saying that there's a particular theme that is kind of hitting at a deep level for you. So there's lots of ways that the way symptoms present in your body tells a story. I've gotten to the point in my career, and I've always understood that emotions are a big driver of symptoms. And I wanted to work more in this way, especially since women are so emotionally in tune in my work. But what has really come to the forefront in the last few years of the work that I'm doing is that I can figure out what questions to ask somebody based on their symptoms, because the symptoms are the language. And I'm serving as the interpreter. And sometimes that means I'm asking you questions that might make you feel uncomfortable. And it's not intentional to make you feel uncomfortable. But often when I ask a question to a client, it bumps up against an uncomfortable space. It's because it hits home for that person and they might not be ready to address that topic. And that's okay. I hold space for that. But what it does is it gives us an idea of these are the themes that are creating this pattern. This feels triggering for you because it bumps up against shadow work that needs to be done, an uncomfortable space that you aren't ready to dive into, and that's okay. Maybe that's not the exact moment, but being able to notice how some of those things show up in your system helps you to figure out where the symptoms really began in the first place. Sometimes it's a tightening. Sometimes it's Like I notice close to my period that if I have a stressful something that hits my system, that could be just the fact that I'm a parent with 4 children in my house and, stress happens, but I get this tightening in my abdomen just before my period starts. And it almost feels like a shiver. My low back starts to hurt, and then the cramping will begin. I remove myself from the stressful situation and that goes away. That is an example of listening when the body whispers, because I'm noticing that there is this change in my baseline and I'm acknowledging that I need to make a change before it develops into full-blown cramps. I used to be the poster child of life debilitating cramps. The emotions that we experience during our luteal phase. I just saw a reel before I started doing this recording from a comedian, right? Poking fun at all of the different faces that the luteal phase can wear. And it's making jokes out of the stories that we tell ourselves about inadequacy or imposter syndrome or, being too emotional or being irritable or whatever. But our luteal phase is like a truth teller. Where are we out of integrity in our life? Are we overextending, meaning doing more than we have energy and resources on board for? And for the majority of us, when we hit the luteal phase, that's exactly what's happening. Our body's preparing for this big process of having a period, and we're doing more than our body really is set up for during that period of time. So then we get angry. It's no different than when you're tired and you don't have the resources to do something and you have to push yourself through it anyway. There's always that conversation in your head going, why do I have to do this right now? I don't have energy for this. Or I heard a mom go, I don't have spoons for this right now. It could be something like that. And the more you push beyond, the more resentful you get, the angrier you get, right? So our body starts telling us when we get the little nudge of irritability that we're going beyond our capacity. And we just have to figure out where that boundary is. Because the luteal phase, we are powerhouse organizers and strategists and strategic planners and all of these things. Like those are skills that our brain is wired for at that point, but we have finite energy. Whereas ovulation, you can work longer hours. You have more energy. It takes longer to get to the bottom of the depth of your resources, right? So this myth of productivity and I'm going to call it that because you can be productive in a bunch of ways that doesn't require you to live in spring and summer energy and go, 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 go all the time. You can be productive in introspection. There is a reason there are seasons in the year. There is a rest and digest phase in the winter. Then we come into spring and things start to burst forth and bud and prepare for the flowering and fruiting season. Then we have the flowering and fruiting season. Then we have the shedding of the leaves and the dye of the plants that grew during that year in order to go into the rest and digest before they come back up again the next year. But they always come back. We don't honor the fact that our bodies mirror nature. Our bodies are nature. So modern health culture comes from this like linear masculine coded system of productivity, and you have to be in the spring and summer energy all the time, and your energy is not allowed to fluctuate, and your productivity is never supposed to change. It's supposed to be like the little engine that could, day in and day out, and it doesn't matter. That is such bullshit. Because there is a value placed on output over rhythm. And one of my favorite Lao Tzu quotes is, Nature never rushes, and yet everything gets done. It is really fucking hard for a lot of us to sit still for 5 minutes. It is really fucking hard for some of us to give ourselves grace and say, I was productive today, and now I am tired, and now I'm going to sit. When we sit, we have all that shit that spins through our brain. I should be doing this. Why am I being lazy? I need to get this other thing done. I still haven't finished my to-do list. It's garbage that we tell ourselves. And it's because we are saturated in this productivity culture that demands that you feel the same way every day. But the thing is you are not a man. Regardless of how you identify and the pronouns you choose, your biology, you are not a 24-hour-day testosterone-driven human being. You are an infradian rhythm being. And because of that, you are not going to be the same every day. And productivity, according to whom? Again, we measure our productivity against this masculine coded myth that it has to be high volume, high output, high achieving, always go, go, go. But that isn't sustainable. And this is why massive numbers of women are hitting burnout. And then they're finding all of these things in their feed on social media that's supposed to help them not feel so burnt out and tired. But always, this is an attunement gap. Before we go deeper into this, if you're listening and thinking, I want more of this kind of conversation, the Rebel Frequency Inner Circle is where we continue in. It's a private space with one bonus episode each month, plus small practices and a community of women doing this work in real life. You can join us through the link in the show notes. All right, back to the show. A balanced woman is often just a woman who is disconnected from her luteal phase, her menstrual phase, that inner winter, that inner fall and winter intelligence. Being able to allow for the introspective part of who we are, which honestly is a frigging superpower, by the way. Can I just mention that? Like, it is our superpower that our hormones support these incredible gifts. There is a reason why in some cultures, red tents also had this added expectation of communing with ancestors, because your intuitive knowing, your extrasensory perception is so heightened during this phase of your cycle. This is where you just know things and you don't know how you know them. And I know that this lands for some of you because you're like, oh yeah, I just kind of know things, especially during that time frame. So this is where self-authority really needs to deepen, because we tend to lean into emotional numbing to stay even. This is doom scrolling on the internet. This is alcohol for some people. This is, how can I find ways to tune out and numb out? Our culture is notoriously bad about being an escapist. And there's a lot of value on escapist culture. When we numb things out in order to stay even, all we're doing is ignoring the conversation. It's like cold shouldering your partner. except your partner in this is the one that you're living with. This vessel that you're living in is trying to co-create with you, is trying to communicate with you, and you're just trying to numb it out. You're trying to numb out pain symptoms. You're trying to numb out thoughts. You're trying to numb out experiences and just coast through things. But our bodies are meant to experience these things and give us information. This is how we knew to get away from the tiger in the woods. Our spidey senses would tell us, ooh, there's something hinky over here. I need to get away from it. And it would take us in another direction. That is a safety system that we have on board. Except today's modern day tiger is 100 unanswered emails in your inbox. It's not an actual tiger lurking in the woods, at least for most of us. So our modern day culture creates these stressors, and because we're getting hit with so many of them all the time, we're like, oh, my nervous system's in overload. Like, I need to numb this out in order to survive. What really scares me is when I see women whose button is stuck in the on position and they've been so stressed for so much of their life, they actually have no perception of how stressed out they are. This is a culture-wide problem. Ignoring luteal phase emotional intensity is ignoring biological intelligence. So when we think that our luteal phase is a problem, I get emotional and I get angry and I hate everybody and I turn into a fire-breathing dragon, like, we think that we need to medicate that away. But it's a conversation. It's biointelligence. So we live in this culture. There's a beautiful book by Liz Koch about the psoas. And one thing that she says in that book is comparing the medical model to a mechanic, and that we have a biomechanistic way of looking at the body. And really what is more serving for overall health and wellness is a biointelligent understanding of the body. I can't take credit for that brilliance, but it is something that I talk to my clients about a lot. Biological intelligence is far superior to anything that comes out of our cerebral understanding from this thing that sits on our shoulders. Burnout happens from trying to force the same energy that we have in the follicular phase, okay? That's like spring outside of your window, that budding, when the trees start to bud and the flowers are like real close to opening and that kind of thing. That is follicular phase energy. That energy before the fruiting and flowering happens is generative. Okay, it's about creating and trying to keep going and all of that type of thing. You're preparing for. And then ovulation happens, which kicks off the luteal phase. It should be where you feel the best of the entire month. That is not the lived experience for some people, but that is what I'm talking about. It's not that experience for some people because they're overextending their energy. But when everything is in alignment, that should be where you feel the best of the entire month. And then things begin to go more inward because now you've reaped the quote unquote harvest. The egg has fully developed and it has been released from the follicle. And now you're in luteal phase energy. When we're trying to be productive, create, produce, generate all month long, we overextend what we have for resources on board and energy on board in the luteal phase of the cycle because we're not supposed to keep churning like that. Then the self-doubt starts to come in. We hit the luteal phase and we start doubting. Is there something wrong with me? I can't perform like I did earlier in the month. There's got to be something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you, my love. Nothing wrong with you. It actually is showing me that you have a healthy expression of your hormones. that you are starting to feel more inward. You do have clearly more finite energetic resources the closer you go to your bleed again. And we begin to lose trust in our inner signals because we normalize this suppression. And in doing that, we abandon ourselves because you know deep down that being overbooked that day on day 21 of your cycle is going to feel horrible by the end of the day. But instead of honoring that, you should only work until 2:00 that day, but you work until 7. That's what I'm talking about, where your biological intelligence, your body is saying, I have this much energy. I can show up in authenticity, in energy, in the ways that I need to show up. I can do that, but only to a point. Then I'm going to need you to pull inward and you're going to have to rest. And what we do is we just keep trying to go because I had one more thing I got to check off on my to-do list. I just have to finish this project. I have to go to this kid's concert tonight. My kid has a game and I've got to drive them around to 3 different fields, whatever it is. And you just keep going. And then we get frustrated when our body goes from a whisper saying, hey, I'm tired. Like, can we honor this a little bit and like maybe slow down, to cramping and ovulation symptoms and breakthrough bleeding that happens at times it shouldn't, and all of those things because you have scooted and bypassed what it was that was being said at a whisper, and now the body's starting to yell at you. So balancing hormones is a fucking myth. What it is hormones express themselves based on inputs. I did a reel about this a little while ago. Is your hormones show up based on how rested. I'm using this whole idea of rest and being well rested, right? Because this is something we can wrap our brains around. When we work an 8-hour day on 4 hours of broken sleep, we show up and we do the bare minimum. Right? Because we just have to get through the day, but the whole day you're thinking about going to bed. Let's be real. When you have solid night's sleep, whether that's 8 or 10 hours for you, doesn't matter. For me, 9 hours and 15 minutes seems to be the magic number these days. But if you get a good, solid, uninterrupted night of sleep, you can hit the ground running in that 8 hours that you are at work, regardless of where you are in your cycle. Yes, that will influence this expression a little bit, but you're going to feel better. Why? Because you've had sleep. This is like people who get hangry. If you're hungry, you get angry because your body is saying, girl, I told you, I need something. Please feed me. And now you're not listening to me, so I'm going to get madder at you because you're not listening to me, okay? If we think about it like that, the goal is not balance. The goal becomes a relationship with rhythm, an attunement to what it is that your body is asking for when it asks politely. I mean, this is like anybody who either has partner or kids or, any sort of relationship dynamics. It's totally different when you say, hey, can you pass me that fork, please? And they just hand you the fork. And the opposing narrative here would be, please hand me the fork. The person stays on their phone, continues the conversation, whatever it is, and isn't listening to you. And you say, please hand me the fork. Still no response. No acknowledgement that you have said anything to them. Hand me the fork. And the please might come out of it. Do you see how that escalates? Your body's no different. It tries to ask you politely. And when it gets bypassed for too long, then it gets pissed. This is no different than any other social interaction that we have in our world. So your goal is about creating a relationship with rhythm, with the phases of your cycle, understanding that each phase has its own intelligence. The follicular phase is emergence, it's clarity, it's new direction, it's that bursting forth energy that I was talking about. It's budding, it's preparing for the full and complete offering. Ovulation is expression, connection. You're radiant because you're trying to attract a partner to get pregnant. Like biochemically, that's what's happening. The luteal phase is about discernment. It's about boundaries and emotional truth. And this is where we get quote unquote PMS and bitchy, is that we have this discernment that comes with our hormone changes. We have this emotional truth that comes with these hormone changes. And when those boundaries are not honored, whether we are allowing that porousness or we haven't actually articulated and established them, that's where we get pissy. Because somewhere at a cellular level, we're understanding that our boundary is not being honored, whether we're mad at ourselves or we're mad at the environment or whatever. That is a situational thing, right? But that's where the crankiness during the luteal phase comes in. Your menstrual phase is about release and inner knowing and insight. Again, the communing with the ancestors in red tents, like it is about being able to deeply drop in with your intuition and what it is that your body is saying that it needs. So when you stop trying to flatten these things and you start listening to them, they become guidance systems for you. So, we're looking at the flow of chi and making sure that energy, vital energy, is moving smoothly through your system. Disruption happens when we override this natural movement. This is where we get things like liver qi stagnation, which is the traditional Chinese medicine official terminology for you're stressed and your system is tightening up and stagnating and not allowing the free flow of energy through your system. Emotional fluctuations across the cycle are not pathology. They are normal movement through the energetic phases that is the embodiment of the feminine experience. The body expresses imbalances only when that rhythm is bypassed and ignored, not when it exists. So here is your invitation to really sit with yourself and ask some of these questions, like, what if fatigue is luteal phase intelligence asking for contraction? Is it inviting you to put up more boundaries and to put less on your plate during that time frame? I know when I started planning my work around the phases of my cycle, not only did I get seriously more effective, I saw a huge reduction in my symptom load. I'm somebody, if you've read my website and you have an intimate knowledge of me as a person, I used to be crippled by endometriosis. But why? It's because I bypassed my body. I tried to work like a little man because I fucking bought into the bullshit myth that I could do everything a man could do. Well, yes, holy shit, I can do everything a man can do. However, I need to do it in different timing. Doesn't mean I can't do it. I can do everything and then some. But the difference is I choose when to do it and where to hold boundaries because it's beyond my capacity at that time. Holy shit. That was mind bending for me when I first started this work. And now I look at it and it is a non-negotiable. If I don't have the energy, my kids now are very familiar with the term, I do not have enough energy for this today. And it's not that I am not honoring the fact that they need something. I'm telling them that I am at my energetic and emotional capacity that day, and I can't show up for them the way that I want to show up because I've reached my limit. I'm exhausted. And now they're going to start getting sharp, tired mama responses from me that is just going to piss them off because I'm going to have less and less of a filter. And like, it just gets nasty for everybody involved. So what if fatigue is luteal phase intelligence asking you to set more intentional boundaries? What if sensitivity is menstrual wisdom asking for you to go inward and get better acquainted with your inner knowing? What if the clarity bursts are follicular expansion? What if desire for connection is an expression of ovulatory energy? So well-being at the end of the day is not about balance. It's about coherence between phase and expectation. What can you actually ask of your body during this time frame? What tasks are you naturally hardwired to excel at so that you're working with the flow of the river rather than trying to swim against it? You expend so much more energy when you're trying to work against the natural flow of things. You make yourself more tired, more frustrated, more out of alignment, and more symptomatic. When you learn how your cycle functions and how your energy changes and how the needs of each cycle fluctuate and where those changes happen, now you're cooking with gas. You are flowing with the river instead of trying to swim as hard as you can against it. Health is when a woman is not fighting her current rhythm. You are not meant to be balanced. You are meant to be in a conversation with your cycle. Your hormones are not broken. They are speaking to you about where you are out of coherence in your life and in your lived experience. I'm going to invite you into self-trust. Instead of feeling like you are broken and you need to correct problems, just starting to become aware of where you are in your cycle, what you judged about it. And when you acknowledge that judgment, don't judge yourself for having those feelings. We've been marinated in a culture that taught us that we're supposed to operate as if nothing changes every month. And places where you have judged yourself, I'm not productive enough. Oh my God, I'm so tired. I just have to get myself going and get through this thing today. And then mental masturbation is what one of my clients called it. And I think it's a great term where like you go through all of this judgy shame, guilt spiral that you self-talk yourself into not enoughness, not doing enough, not being enough, not showing up enough. Like, fuck that noise. Those are where our body starts expressing symptoms. But hormones are merely an expression of the conversation. So I just want you to take from this episode, if you don't take anything else, take from this episode that you are not a broken thing to be fixed. You are a biointelligent body that is being invited through symptoms as a language into creating what is actually in alignment for you. You are being invited into a conversation around creating healthy boundaries that serve you, regardless of anybody else's external expectations or any of the other noise. When you quiet your mind and you drop into your body and you ask her, does this feel good to me? If the answer is no, don't do it. Because it means you're pushing beyond your capacity in some way. You will put yourself out of a coherent state in some way. If you want more specific guidance around this, you can always start with the Alchemist Toolkit. It is a really comprehensive look at where is day one of your cycle, what are each of these phases, how do they work, how do I support them? But if you really want transformative one-on-one change, please reach out to me. I love having these kinds of conversations. Yes, sometimes I ask questions that might challenge you a little bit, but it's from a loving place of helping you create a different relationship with this vessel that you live in. I spent so much of my life living in this body betraying me understanding. And the more I believed it, the worse my symptoms got. And that is exactly why I am a cycle alchemist now, because it's really about changing the conversation that your body is not the enemy. It is not betraying you. You can trust it. And it's merely trying to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope that it left you with something nourishing and empowering. Please check out the resources that I referenced because they are there to help you to thrive instead of feel like you just survive like so many of us do. And until next time, everybody. If you're listening to this and feel like there's still something here for you, like the conversation isn't quite finished in your body yet, that's exactly why I created the Rebel Frequency Inner Circle. It's a private space where we go deeper with one bonus episode each month, small ritual practices, and a community of women who are actually living this work. It's just $5 a month. You can join through the link in the show notes. Come stay in the conversation.